Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Laurel Westendorf, part of the Community Relations team at the Deschutes Public Library. Today's program is Tribal History Shared History, also known as State Bill 13, with Angie Morrill, as part of this month's exploration of what makes us, us, from geography to history. Dr. Angie Morrill is enrolled in the Klamath Tribes and is the Director of Indian Education for Portland Public Schools. She earned her doctorate from the University of California, San Diego in Ethnic Studies, with a dissertation in Native Feminist Methodologies. Thank you, Angie, for taking the time to share the important activism and work that led to the passing of State Bill 13.
Thanks, Laurel. It's great to be here today and talk about this important legislation. It's been really exciting to be a part of the activism that led to it, and now that it's being implemented, to be a part of that that process, both in my district and statewide as a member of the American Indian Alaskan Native State Advisory Council. I just want to give, I guess, a brief overview of the Senate bill, and then talk a little bit about the process of implementation, and what that is going to look like across the state is still kind of a mystery. But we've been able to do some work here in Portland because of because of one of the people at PPS, David Martinez, really got us organized last year. So before the quarantine and pandemic shut down the schools, we were really able to do some trainings and stay a little bit ahead of it. I also want to let people know that for the Oregon in-state teacher training day in October, I think it's the 8th and 9th, the Oregon Department of Education is planning on having a webinar, maybe 2 webinars available about Senate Bill 13 for teachers. So that's something to look forward to. And there's a really wealth of information on the ODE website, including, curriculum. Right now what's available is 4th, 8th, and 10th grade curriculums, links to tribal curriculums, and then really important kind of pre-curriculum work for teachers and educators, the essential understandings that were created by the tribes, the 9 federally recognized tribes of Oregon, critical orientations called the 6 Ps, is a document created by University of Oregon professor Leilani Sebzalian and a good friend of mine. It's really helpful in thinking about how to think about what tribal history, shared history is, and okay, so I'm just going to start then. And actually what I really want to start with is just, in 2013, April Campbell from the Grand Ronde Tribe was hired by the state as their Indian education advisor. And that was the beginning of a lot of change. It's not like they didn't have that position before. They had it. And then it had become part-time in the 90s, and then defunded, and then it was refunded in, I think, 2003, but it wasn't until 2013 that the position was filled full-time. And that created some momentum in the state. It didn't have to, but she was the right person at the right time. And she put together a state advisory council, American Indian Alaskan Native Advisory Council, that included education directors from the 9 tribes in Oregon, as well as stakeholders from around the state, people who'd worked with teachers, former teachers, Title VI directors, professors who train teachers, and we met to develop the American Indian Alaska Native State Advisory Plan to create equity for Native students in Oregon. And that is all essential groundwork for what became SB 13, Tribal History, Shared History. I grew up in Oregon. I was born here in Portland. I attended grade school here and high school and eventually college. I went to the University of Oregon before I went to California for my graduate degree. And I will say that I didn't have a teacher that wasn't white until I went to college. And to me, that's a real shame. And that's something that very much needs to change. So what I think is so important in this, I don't know, historical moment for Indian education in Oregon is to really think about the fact that SB 13 came about because of the activism of a lot of people who are interested in Native education, but that the goal is actually to serve all students in Oregon. It is for all students. Right now, there's curriculum for 4th grade, 10th grade, 8th grade, but curriculum is going to be provided and rolled out every year for kindergarten through 12th grade. In fact, I think they're even going to have pre-K curriculum, which I think is really exciting because a lot of students in Head Start, it's never too early to learn Native knowledge from a Native perspective, to learn why Indigenous knowledge matters. The other thing I wanted to say is just that as the director of Indian Ed, it's a role I've had for just over 4 years, I get a lot of contact from teachers, and they want to do the right thing. They want to teach Native American issues, not just history, but also contemporary issues. But they don't know how, and they don't want to make a mistake and then get, I don't know, in trouble or feel badly about it. And so they contact me in my office and ask for support and help. And I've done trainings for student teachers as well. And Tribal History, Shared History, having this curriculum available, when you go to the website, every single thing's included with every lesson plan. If it references a map, the map is there. If it references a story, the story is there. If for some reason the curriculum is, I don't know, falls short in some way, or there's, some criticism, go ahead and, provide that feedback to the Oregon Department of Education. They're interested, and, they can make changes. Education Northwest created the first 45 modules, but these are not, those are my kittens if you heard that. There's not going to be it's not a finished product. It's not a final process. It is a process. It is happening. It's one of those examples of making the road while you're walking it. And in that way, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be clean. It's going to be messy. But it is, I think, exciting. Even in the 4 years I've been in Indian education, I have had so many examples from parents of damaging lesson plans, of racist stereotypes in the classroom, of books with, blatant misrepresentations of Indigenous people. And in Portland public schools, the teachers have been able to create whatever curriculum they want to teach. It's every teacher has that ability and power. And so for me, it's very exciting. My son graduated from high school a few years ago, and he had a really hard time. I had a really hard time. It is the educational process for Native students is really, it can be very difficult, not because we're not intelligent, but because we don't see ourselves in the classrooms. And this makes a huge difference. And it's not social studies. So SB 13 covers physical education, science, math, language arts, and social studies. So it's across 5 areas. That means in PE, students will learn Native games. In science, they'll learn, Indigenous science practices, that there's an Indigenous slant on math, that we are not relegated to the, sepia-toned photographs, in history books. So it's very alive. And there's an expectation of contemporary representation and storytelling, which, is very cool and so important for all students in Oregon to think about whose land they're on, to think about the resources of the state, the laws of the state, and how they apply to all of the people in the state. So at any rate, I'm just so grateful for all of the hard work that educators and activists have done to get SB 13 passed. We're following other states. Washington has tribal history. Montana has a curriculum. But there are states that pass this law and do not implement it. For example, Arizona. And so, we have definitely come across a stumbling block with pandemic. And I know that that's, difficult as districts are, expected to implement the curriculum this fall, and that not being in classrooms, just all of the struggles. I don't have to, go through what they are in distance learning that families and teachers are having. But it's still an expectation. And what I'm hoping for is that we really work on celebrating the successes of the teachers that are working so hard to implement the curriculum, that we share in whatever forums we can find online, different examples of, successful lesson plans. And in that way we can, inspire each other and help each other to continue to do this work, because it's so important. Okay, so April Campbell was hired, and that was in 2013. She put together the the American Indian Alaska Native State Advisory Council, which worked on and is continuing to work on the state plan for Native education. And then this plan that had been in the works, the Tribal History, Shared History, was really finally had the momentum for a lot of activists to be focused on what Here, let's see. On the work that had been done sooner, that had been done in the past, to finally push it through and make a strategic move so that the Board of Education would adopt the plan's objective to implement culturally relevant curriculum. And the State Board of Education gave the endorsement, and that gave Native educators just more power behind their advocacy. What ultimately happened is that there was testimony in the state. The representatives from the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation, Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians, and Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde and Coquel Indian Tribe, educators and parents from rural and urban areas, including organizations such as the Native American Youth and Family Center, Title VI Indian education programs, the Oregon Department of Education as well, attended and testified at Ways and Means Committee meetings. And one of the things they talked about is not just the importance of Indigenous education or Native, tribal history, shared history from a Native perspective, but also that you can't pass this and not fund it. That the funding element, that's how it would be implemented. If there's no funding, then nothing's going to happen. And so that's really how this bill is unique. It was funded to $2 million. Each of the tribes received money to create their own curriculum, in addition to there being a statewide curriculum. And it passed the Oregon House of Representatives unanimously in August 2nd, 2017. Was very exciting. And the ceremonial signing on September 18th, 2017, only, 3 short years ago, was just a really joyous moment for Indian educators and stakeholders in Oregon. I recommend for people, educators who are interested in successfully implementing the curriculum in their classroom, to go to the Oregon Department of Education website, the Indian education page, where there are so many resources, and check out the essential understandings that the 9 tribes worked on. Make yourself familiar with the critical orientations, which we also call the 6 Ps that Dr. Leilani Sipsalian worked on. And there are also different recordings from Shandine Garcia that talk about the implications and importance of Senate Bill 13. I think it's also really important for educators to talk to each other. I'm the Tribal Advisory Chairperson. I'm the chairperson of the Tribal Advisory Council for the Setsquatla Indian Teacher Training Program at the University of Oregon. It is an incredibly successful program that each year graduates a cohort that we try to get hired in the state of Oregon. But the truth is that there's just not enough Native teachers, and that it shouldn't be on the heads of Native teachers to do this work. In fact, it's really important that it isn't. It's really important that that this work is seen as everyone's work, all educators' work. As a Title VI director for Portland Public Schools, I understand that, depending on where you are in the state, you may or may not have a Title VI program. And what that is, Title VI, the program that I run, is a federally funded program that enrolls Native students who are either enrolled in their own tribe, or their parent is, or their grandparent. And they have to have documentation of that. You cannot be self-identified to be enrolled in the program. Now, certainly in Portland, you can participate, but for us to enroll you in our program and for us to get funding for that, we have to have that proof of a grandparent, parent, or the student themselves being enrolled in a tribe. That's how the federal government provides funding for our program. And the purpose of the program is to provide kind of a bridge between what the district does and the Native families. We provide cultural and academic support. We celebrate different milestones, whether it's graduating from high school, or we also do a land and leadership camp during spring break. But those are often sometimes the only people who work with Native students in a district. And some districts are putting the professional development work of implementing SB 13 onto the different Indian Ed programs. And that's not actually the job of the Indian education programs. And so if you are working with districts, it's important to talk to ODE, get some expert help and advice in professional development training, and let the Title VI Indian education people do their job in working with families and supporting students who are struggling in the state of Oregon. If you're a Native parent, or I don't have to tell you that our graduation rate is 50%. It needs improvement, and we can't take resources away from those programs to do professional development and curriculum training, which isn't necessarily in the wheelhouse of Indian Ed, because we still need to support our students. The one misconception that comes up that I would very much want to correct for everyone is that tribal history, shared history, I mean, even the name is a little bit like, well, it misrepresents, because it's not just history. It is, it's education from a Native perspective. And because it isn't just history, it's science, it's math, it's physical education, and language arts and social studies. It's just that I just want people to understand that it's for all students. From pre-K through 12, it's for all students. And as it's being implemented, I really believe that graduation rates will go up for Native students. That having every student in a classroom understand what tribal sovereignty is, what how much fun it is to play Native games, what kinds of contributions Indigenous people have had in science and math will just increase respect for Native peoples in Oregon, and of course, self-respect for students who haven't been able to see themselves in classrooms before, who haven't been able to see themselves in curriculum before. I don't think it's going to happen right away. I definitely expect there to be pushback, but I will say in the professional development that we've done here in Portland, it's been awesome that teachers, TOSAs, administrators have had such really positive feedback. And what we've done here is work together as a team with different administrators and curriculum specialists, and I've helped out too. And so we've been able to kind of like patch together a team. And we have some PowerPoints. If anyone's interested, you can email me and I will happily send you those professional development tools. But what I really want to encourage districts to do, and even the Portland Public Schools, is to hire a Native educator, a Native education specialist. It's worth it. It's time, and Indian education in Oregon and our students deserve that. So, sure, there's more questions. I feel like I've covered what I mostly know, so I'm gonna hand it back to Laurel, and I just want to let you know if you have any questions for me or emails or anything like that, I will try to answer them. And good luck, and thank you for participating in this really important work. It means so much to all of our students.
Thank you so much, Angie, for sharing. I think it is incredibly important to have representation, not only for the students in the classroom that are Native, but also to have educators as well that can help us appreciate Native knowledge and intelligence and understanding that goes way beyond, history, which is so cool. So I'm really excited, and I wish I had had an opportunity to do this rather than just in college as well.
Me too. It would have been a huge difference, a huge difference.
Yeah. I gained a huge appreciation for salmon and rivers when I got to college, and I mean, I will never forget that. It changed the entire course of my studies. So we do have links to the resources Angie mentioned in the description below, including the Oregon Department of Education curriculum and the Essential Understanding. So please check that out and enjoy the process of SB 13, because I think it is better that the road exists at all than that the road doesn't. So it's okay that it's a process. So I want to thank you, Angie, for coming.
It's going to be good that it's a process.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Have a great day.